Hi, I'm Brian Welk here in TheWrap's virtual Sundance studio for 2022. And today I am joined by the directors from The American Dream and Other Fairy Tales, Abigail Disney and Kathleen Hughes. Thank you both so much for talking with me today.
Totally a pleasure.
Great to be here.
So this film is primarily about Disney and Disneyland and the wealth inequality, not just at Disney, but in this country. And of course, Abigail, this is your namesake family, and you have a lot of history there. But I want to know, you say early on in the film that for a long time you didn't speak badly about the family, about the company, and about that history that was there. What changed? What was the turning point for you? You mentioned getting an email from someone, but was that the moment?
Well, there's a scene in the film where I asked them, how many of you, have trouble buying enough food on what you're earning, and all the hands in the room go up, and how many of you have slept in your car, and all the hands go. That was the moment for me. I tried to be a good soldier for a really long time. And that was just sort of the ethic I was raised with. And I just can't ignore that every privilege I have came because of people working hard. And when they're not being well enough paid, and when the inequality is so vast, and like, I didn't want to just turn it into a story about Disney. I mean, I really needed this to be a platform for a bigger story, because this is happening to American workers across the country.
That scene that you mentioned, that kind of support group moment of different Disney employees, what shocked me so much about it, not only are they all raising their hands, they can't get health care, they can't get, they're sleeping in their cars, but they also love working for Disney, or love the idea of being a cast member.
Yes.
And there's even a funny moment in, like, someone saying, "Oh, I'm working two jobs. I'm also working at Knott's Berry Farm," and someone like hisses at them, like, "Boo!" But I mean, how do they grapple? How do you grapple with that of knowing that?
I mean, it said my reaction, because I've known people who work at that company all my life, and my grandfather said, you have to respect these people. They work so hard and they love this company so much, and you had better show them respect. And so that's what I was sort of trained to do. And I couldn't take it, honestly, that it almost felt like their good faith and their positivity about the company was being taken advantage of. And I mean, rather than being rewarded. And so much about that experience of going to the park depends on people cleaning properly because they're proud of their jobs, or people greeting you with a smile because, first of all, they get dental health care, and second of all, they're happy to be there. It just feels to me so deeply wrong to treat them the way, given how much they love the company, to treat them the way we're treating them.
Wow. Kathleen, how did you get involved in this film and meet up with Abigail? Or if you had something to add too, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to say about the workers, just they really felt and still feel that they would like to make things better there because they love the company that much and they love what the company stands for. So it was really fascinating to experience that double message that we were getting from them. Because people would say to them, well, why don't you leave? Why don't you just quit? And first of all, as the woman from Knott's Berry Farm points out, the other jobs aren't any better paying.
Yeah.
And so there's that problem. And also I think they feel like they really feel that Disney's an American institution that needs to do better. And if Disney does better, maybe other companies will follow suit. So we had a really interesting conversation with them. In any case, and how I met Abby, we worked together. I first met Abby working on The Armor of Light. We made the film about the gun issue in America, and I've been working with her ever since. And first of all, I've covered this story from a lot of vantage points over the years, and I remember when Abby came back from her first meeting with the workers, which she did off camera. She met up with some of the workers after getting an email from Ralph, one of the people you meet in the film. And she was just so wigged out by, by what she heard. And and you know, part of me was like, yeah, well, this is like the most important issue facing the country, right? Like we need to deal with this story. And you know, over the months, as Abby was thinking about what to do about it, you know, it sort of became clear, especially after she went on television and got such an incredible response to her commentary about Bob Iger's income, about his wages, that we thought, you know, why not do this film? This is a way to talk about this subject that might make people stop and listen.
Was that interview for you, like was it CNBC, or, you know, was that like the turning point for you as like a public figure, or someone who's like, there's no going back now?
I mean, it was a live interview, and I had come there to talk about something else. And so I was not expecting a question about the compensation for the CEO or anybody else. So that question came out of left field for me. And I had already been to Disneyland, met with the workers. I'd already quietly written emails and tried to think about, like, how would I even address this? I don't own that much stock, and I don't have a role at the company. And you know, what influence I had, I've already run out of. So I kept thinking I owe these workers my best shot, but I couldn't figure out what that would look like until he asked me that question, Andrew Ross Sorkin. And I just, my policy is to answer a question honestly. Then you don't have to remember that I got this from watching I Love Lucy. It always gave me stress to watch her lie. You don't have to remember the lie you made up. And I said what I said, it went viral. And that was when Kathy and I looked at each other and said, well, this is a film. Why don't we do that?
Within, you know, she said that, Abby said what she said. You did, you know, drill down on it. You went and did a long Twitter rant, which the Washington Post invited Abby to turn into an op-ed, which you did overnight. And then all of a sudden, you know, it wasn't just that the media was calling, everybody wanted to talk to you. Abby was even invited to testify in front of Congress.
Right.
And that was essentially when we brought the cameras. We realized, let's just see where this goes.
You mentioned speaking with Congress, that you mentioned that like a lobbyist or something was trying to prevent you from speaking. That really shocked me in the film. How did you discover that?
We were told by one of the aides to the congressman who invited me, Maxine Waters. And apparently they'd been really working hard to get this thing stopped. And, you know, Disney has this incredible love and affection from the American public. And that buys them a lot of goodwill. But like back behind that, there's Big Mouse. And Big Mouse is a very tough company. And they are very aggressive PR and very aggressive legal teams. And they don't hesitate to try to control the narrative in any way that they can.
Sure. Not to mention the governments and the state legislatures and so forth. I mean, they have influence everywhere.
I mean, how many different employees, cast members, did you speak with? Because I'm sure the film only scratches the surface of all those stories that are out there.
You know, the thing is, like, if you've talked to people who work at Disney from middle management and up, they're very happy working at the company. They like the benefits, they like the package. That is, you know, when you talk to HR, they'll say, we've polled everybody and they're happy. The problem is the people working at the lowest levels, the custodians and the hotel maids and people like that, are almost like seen as some other kind of worker, something different, and therefore not deserving of a benefits package and a generous, you know, paid leave and things like that. So and this is at a lot of companies, the whole idea of how you pay people changes. when you get below a certain threshold. So we talked to union workers. These were all union workers, and that is how hard it is and how rough the unions have it right now, that they're fighting as hard as they can as a union, and they still have people on food stamps, and they still have to set up a food pantry at the union, which is horrifying. But I think the first time I sat down, it was something like 30 people from 2 different unions. And then the second time when we brought cameras, it was in the 25 to 30 range. And we picked people for their kind of typicalness. Any one of those people in that room that day could have been just as interesting a story if we'd followed them home.
You mentioned Big Mouse, and now we do have a new regime kind of in place. I use the word regime, I guess. It's well, I mean, have you talked to Bob Iger? Have you talked to Bob Chapek? And you know,
I've never met Bob Chapek. I don't know the first thing about him. I worry because he's never held a creative job at the company, and from what I hear, he's not interested in the creative aspect of the company. That seems to me a real not good departure from.
I mean, he comes from the park side, so like, isn't he like the person to really drill down on this? Yeah,
exactly. So, and I actually talked to some Wall Street analysts about the company only a few months ago, and they went on and on about how much they love Bob Chapek because of his ability to cut and control costs. And whenever somebody on Wall Street talks about cutting costs, they're talking about people, human people, and they to them it's just this abstract notion. But he was sort of notorious at the parks for instituting a lot of the cost savings that have basically translated into terrible developments for the workers.
So I guess you're not necessarily optimistic or hopeful in the near time. The film ends with a
wrong. And I should say that they just came to an agreement significantly bringing that bottom level salary up to almost, I think, over $18 an hour. So that's great. That's a great step in the right direction. But I think that they weren't going to have a choice because a lot of people are not coming back. They're being asked to do more work in the same job. I just don't. I don't see how they would have had a choice. But I'm delighted they did it, and I think it's a great thing. And I have to give them all credit for that. Let's just hope they start to show the kind of respect that comes with paid parental leave, paid sick days, not messing with people's hours so they don't qualify for the healthcare package and things like that. It's not just about the hourly wage. It's about treating people with human dignity.
Okay. And I think we should give the unions and there a lot of credit because they've been fighting for better wages and better working conditions for many years now. And this is not like Disney didn't just like one day wake up and say, oh, we're going to be, so generous here. They were negotiations for this raise for over a year and resisting a lot of it. And, you can look back at what's been going on in Anaheim in terms of the real hard work the unions and local people are doing to try and force the company to treat people better. So it's a two-way street. I wouldn't want anyone to think, oh, Disney was so generous this year, so to speak.
Well, they were generous with their former CEO and their current CEO too.
Well, there's that. That's another story.
To close out, I mean, what can citizens do on a local level to make a difference to help people and make an impact on not just Disney, but other companies?
That's a great question, and I love that question a lot. I mean, I tried to focus in the film on the fact that this is partly about our norms as a society shifting radically in the 80s and 90s and aughties, where, once we had the idea of ourselves as living in a community and therefore supporting each other in community. So we weren't all just grabbing for ourselves. So we've invested really heavily in the narrative of individualism and individual achievement. And I think we need private citizens to kind of take a step back and ask ourselves, like, how much do we really do all by ourselves? And if what you want to do is rise in society, how do you rise and bring everybody with you? So part of this is a heart change, which is very, airy fairy, and it feels like that's not something real, but actually it's the realest part of this. And then what would follow from a shift in the heart would be a different pattern in selecting our politicians and supporting them, because our politicians are going to need to restrain corporations. They will not do it on their own. We're going to have to restore some regulation. We're going to have to break up some monopolies. I frankly, personally believe Disney's too big a company and controls too much media. And we ask ourselves the question, like, why do we have so many billionaires, and are billionaires good for our society? So we as private citizens need to do better as voters, and in the way we understand and treat each other in terms of what work means.
Okay. Well, thank you both so much. Congratulations on the film, and enjoy the rest of your Sundance.
Thank you so much.